Hi. If you're like me, you are ecstatic about November 18th, 2025, because that, my friends, is when the sequel to Quicksilver comes out. That is going to be called Brimstone. I'm super, super excited. I just finished this book. This is such a lovely romantasy book that I really, really enjoyed. But here's the problem. By the time November rolls around, I'm going to forget most of the stuff that happened in this book. Why? Because there is a lot going on in this book. There is so much happening, and I want to make sure that I recall the events well enough to where I'm not completely lost when I crack open Brimstone on November 18th, 2025. So if you are here for a summary, you are in the right place. This is a summary video. This contains a ton of spoilers. This video is going to be for the fans who have already read and loved Quicksilver. Unless you want to know what this book is all about without actually reading it or listening to the audiobook, I'm going to save you at least 19 hours because the audiobook version of this is 20 hours. I'm going to get the summary out for you as quickly as I possibly can, but it's going to take us some time because there's, again, so much going on in this book, and I'm not going to be able to capture every little detail. If you want every little detail, you need to read this book. And if that's the case, I'm going to drop an Amazon link below in the description to where you can purchase yourself a copy of Quicksilver. You can decide whether or not you want the paperback, the hardback, the audio, whatever. If you want every little detail, you need to listen and or read this book because there is a lot going on. We have 609 pages just jam-packed with awesomeness. This is a stunning cover, and I would love to hold this for the entire duration of the summary, but I don't think that makes sense, so we're going to put this over here. That looks nice. Before we get any further, if you enjoy bookish content, if you enjoy bookish rants, if you enjoy book summaries, don't forget to hit subscribe. Really appreciate your support. So glad that you're here, and let's dive into it. We have our wonderful main female character. Her name is Ceres. Really, really cool name, by the way. The book opens with her getting captured by one of the queen's guards. She is being questioned for stealing. He asks her what her name is, what her age is, and what her ward is. She is truthful in regard to 2 of the 3 aspects. She does indicate that she is 24 years old, which is true. She's from the 3rd ward, which is true, but she gives a different name than her actual name. Now, the guard who has her in his clutches with his gauntlet is a little concerned because the 3rd ward is currently under quarantine. She is not supposed to be outside of the 3rd ward. The 3rd ward has been quarantined by the queen because they're all said to be sick and infected. Now, whether or not that's true is yet to be determined, but we do know that the people stuck in the 3rd ward are severely deprived, especially when it comes to water. They're all receiving very stingy water rations that they can barely survive off of. So Ceres is a thief. She has to steal water in order to survive. So in a panic, he shoves her to the ground and he removes his gauntlet and throws it into the ground next to her. Now, Ceres is overwhelmed with enthusiasm because this piece of armor, this gauntlet, is worth a lot of money. She has a ton of ideas for what she can use this gauntlet for. So she snatches it and she runs. Now, we see from the very beginning that the sand is reacting to Ceres very strangely. There's something weird going on there, but we're not privy to those details quite yet. Ceres is successful in stealing this gauntlet, and the first thing she does is take it to her friend Elroy, who is a glassmaker. This man used to be in love with Ceres' mother, but she is now deceased. We'll learn more about her later. Ceres asks Elroy to recreate the gauntlet, melt it down, make something else out of it that she can sell. Elroy immediately refuses. He knows just how high risk this is going to be. If he is ever discovered, he is going to be put to death, probably in a very painful way. And same goes for Ceres if she's ever discovered. So Elroy turns Ceres away, and now Ceres is forced to carry around this gauntlet, which is not very fun because if she's discovered, that is bad news. She's carrying it where she ends up at a tavern where she is well known. Ceres is known for either fighting or the other F word, doing the intimate stuff with people. She's kind of a rough and tumble character. I like it. She ends up at this tavern in order to find her brother who has been kicked out and beaten, and he has gambled away an article of his clothing. Ceres gives the bag, which has the gauntlet, to her brother Hayden and says, do not lose this. Whatever you do not lose this. Do not leave it unattended. She goes inside the tavern and she meets a character named Carrion who has relieved Hayden of this clothing article. I think it's a scarf. I'm trying to remember correctly what it was. Now, Ceres is frustrated with Carrion. They actually have a history. They have slept together exactly 1 time, and Ceres actually admits to it being very, very satisfying. But she doesn't like to let him know that because this Carrion dude, he's funny, but he has a really big head as it is. Now, Carrion agrees to return the clothing article to Ceres to give back to Hayden in exchange for her time. So she begrudgingly accepts and shares a whiskey with Carrion. Now, Carrion is a smarter cookie than he pretends to be. News of the gauntlet theft has quickly circulated through the city, so he knows exactly who's responsible. Again, he's smarter than he appears to be. And he warns Cerys he doesn't necessarily want the riches or the value of the gauntlet for himself, but he says, you realize how risky this is. You better figure out what you're doing with that, and you better figure it out fast. So he essentially tells her exactly what Elroy told her. Now here's the problem. When Cerys returns to go retrieve her brother, Hayden is gone. Shocking. Yep, and so is the bag. Now Cerys hears a clamor, a huge commotion several feet away, and she just knows, she feels it in the pit of her stomach. Something's going wrong with Hayden. When she goes to investigate, she finds, yep, Hayden was discovered. He has been cornered by a bunch of guards from Queen Madra. In an attempt to exonerate her brother, she steps forward and says, it was me. I took the gauntlet. And therefore we see our first action scene where Cerys kicks ass. Yes, she flat out murders 2 of the guards. We've barely gotten a glimpse into her character. She kills 2 dudes already. Love it. Right off the bat. She's scrappy. You might be wondering where Cerys learned to fight. She has learned from people in her ward. Remember, life is extremely rough in the 3rd ward, so she's had to learn the ways of the sword just in order to simply survive. There's way more guards, and Cerys is eventually overpowered. She is captured. She is taken to the Queen's dungeons, essentially, or a cell in the Queen's dungeons. And she's stuck there for a period of time before she is taken to see Queen Madra herself. Now, one of the Queen's guards, his name is Heron. He drags her into the room in order to see the Queen. Now, in the process of this, Cerys notices like a lever of some sort sticking out of the wall or somewhere in the vicinity, and she can't help but just feel pulled towards it. She is drawn. Her attention is constantly coming back to this lever. The Queen has a very quick chat with Cerys and says, you know what? I sentence you to death, but Heron, Captain, make it painful. I want to hear her screams. Well, Heron tries to deliver. He ends up stabbing Cerys in the stomach, which is incredibly painful, as you can probably imagine. He also stabs her in the shoulder. When all of a sudden he's going to stab her a 3rd time, Cerys is able to do something with the silver, and she essentially liquefies it. And in its liquid form, it starts crawling towards Heron in an attempt to help her and assist her. Now, Cerys doesn't know how she's doing what she's doing. She's just doing it. Maybe it's out of desperation. Maybe she's done something else that she doesn't know, but she has no idea why the silver is helping her. It just is. Heron is quickly being attacked by the silver. It's crawling up in its liquid form. It's crawling up his legs and up his torso, quickly climbing towards his neck. This is when Cerys, who has already been stabbed multiple times, she's remembering the lever that she saw in the room. Well, she goes over to it and realizes, wow, holy crap, this is a sword. It's a really, really cool sword. And she, in theory, is not supposed to be able to draw it. It's kind of like a sword in the stone type of situation. Well, she pulls it from its resting place, no problem, and she uses it to defend herself against Heron. Now, Cerys draws the sword, intending to use it to finish off Heron, but something weird happens. The moment she grabs this sword, there is a pool of liquid, and where a really attractive male emerges out of nowhere. Now, Cerys doesn't know who he is other than, wow, this dude's pretty attractive. The only way that she can kind of identify him is death. She thinks death has come for her, and she thinks that's him. Now, this person, Death, approaches Heron, deals with him. The details of that are kind of obscure because this is told from Cerys' point of view. She's fading fast because don't forget, she is fatally wounded. She's got stab wounds all over her body. She can't really pay attention to what's happening, but after Death goes and deals with Heron, he comes to her, slips a pendant around her neck, and takes her into this pool of liquid, which we soon discover is called Quicksilver. Now, let's just get this out of the way. This Death character, he's not Death. His name is Kingfisher. He is Fae. He's also the main love interest. So, surprise, surprise. Kingfisher drags Cerys through this pool of Quicksilver, which transports her from the human realm into the Fae realm. Now, Cerys requires many, many days to recover, 10 days, if I'm not mistaken, to recover from these pretty much fatal wounds. During this recovery period, Cerys is visited by a Fae named Everlane. She is very, very sweet. She keeps her company. She's just a kind, sweet Fae soul. We come to discover later on that Everlane is actually the daughter of King Bellicon. Everlane, also known as Lane, is interrupted by a new character named Renfist. Let's just call him Ren. Ren comes and needs to collect the pendant that was cast around Cerys' neck when she went through the pool of Quicksilver. Ren comes in saying that Kingfisher really needs it back. It is dire. It is imminent. He needs it like right now. So Cerys, without really thinking anything of it, she returns the pendant, and then we later on find out in this next interaction that Bellicon, yes, is the father of Everlane, but he's also the stepfather of Fisher. Kingfisher, let's just call him Fisher. We've got nicknames for all of these characters. Now, Everlane and Kingfisher, they are half brother and sister. Kingfisher is not related by blood to King Bellicon, but that is actually going to be Everlane. Everlane is the blood daughter of King Bellicon. If that makes any sense. Anyways, they're half brother and half sister. Kingfisher's mother was chosen to be wed to King Bellicon once upon a time. She had already had Kingfisher with another man at a different time. So King Bellicon kind of inherited this stepson that he never wanted and never respected. So now Cerys is forced to go meet with King Bellicon. Everlane escorts her to see the king, and when she's meeting with the king, they bring in Kingfisher, who is completely feral. This dude has lost his mind. Why? He is missing the pendant. So that pendant is very significant in helping him keep his sanity. Why? Kingfisher has Quicksilver. You can see it in his eye. So he has dark, wavy hair. He's got slate green eyes, and one eye in particular has Quicksilver that is circling his pupil. Cool looking, but very deadly to him. Now, why is Kingfisher going crazy? Well, it's the Quicksilver in his eye, but he also spent 111 years in what he has determined as hell. We learn more about that later on. Kingfisher is completely out of place in this palace of King Bellicon because King Bellicon doesn't like Kingfisher, doesn't like him at all, wants nothing to do with him. So Kingfisher doesn't have a room of his own. He's just kind of not even considered a guest in this palace. King doesn't want him there. But we do realize that Kingfisher possesses an ability to kind of wield and control the shadows, much like you see in some other fantasy novels. You'll be familiar with this power if you've ever read the Empyrean series. He shares a similar power to Xaden Riorson. It is determined that Cerys has this special ability. We see this early on in the story, but she's actually an alchemist who has the ability to transform Quicksilver. So what Kingfisher wants from her is to help him create relics out of the Quicksilver. That is no easy task. Kingfisher, in a way, is trying to help and train Cerys with the Quicksilver. He is ruthless. This Quicksilver hurts to touch, and he doesn't really seem to care. Cerys is in a lot of pain, but he forces her to hold it to see if she can figure out how to manipulate it. And yeah, he's a cold-hearted bastard. Yep. He does not seem to give a damn that this is a very painful experience for her. After the first trial, where they actually establish kind of a base in this forge, Cerys punches Kingfisher right in the face, which only peeves Kingfisher even more. He throws her over his shoulder, throws her down onto the bed, and leaves. We also start to see a little bit of the magic that Kingfisher has at his disposal. When they first enter the forge, everything is in ruins. Everything's a mess. Cerys and Kingfisher end up spending actual physical time picking up and trying to tidy up and everything, when Kingfisher can really just snap his fingers and it's done. So Cerys was a little peeved about that. Also, on the side, Cerys is supposed to be spending some time with Everlane in order to research more about making these relics and also learn more about the Fae realm, because she doesn't know anything about it so far. Anyways, these lessons continue in the forge between Kingfisher and Cerys. Now, here's the embarrassing part, is Kingfisher, he has such a heightened sense of smell that he can smell that Cerys is wildly attracted to him, and undeniably so, which leads to their very passionate first kiss. Now, Cerys is crafty. She's smart. She uses this kiss to her advantage in order to get the ring that Kingfisher has, because she thinks it's going to be able to assist her in her travels back to her homeworld. She wants to go back home. She wants to check in on Hayden. Now, remember Queen Madra? Yeah, we don't like her. She is a nasty, evil human queen. Now, that sword that Cerys drew, which originally she believed to be a lever of some sort, now that is actually a very, very powerful sword, and it's actually the sword that belonged to Kingfisher's father. It is named Solus. What Queen Madra did is she used it to cut off the portals between realms, so that way no Fae or human can travel from realm to realm, which ended up also cutting off the Fae from obtaining supplies in order to assist in the current war that's going on. Oh, and also super cute, Cerys ends up meeting a cute little fox who she ends up keeping as a pet somewhat. She ends up naming him Onyx. The fox is in and out of the story. He's really not a very critical part of the story, but he's there. So now that Cerys has this ring that she thinks is going to help her get back to her world, she is headed for the pool of Quicksilver so she can go back home. She is stopped by, wouldn't you know, Kingfisher. He stops her and says, "You stupid girl, what are you doing? That Quicksilver would have killed you." And she's like, "Aha, but I have your ring." And he's like, "Haha, that doesn't make a difference. It's not what you think it is." And she goes, "Oh, that sucks, but thanks for saving my life, I guess." So this kind of gives Kingfisher a little bit more incentive to try to get Cerys to work with him a little bit better. So this is where he strikes a deal with her, a blood oath, if you will, and says, "All right, I'll bring one human back for you so they can keep you company, but you have to stay and make all these relics for me that will allow my soldiers to pass between realms. It will help immensely with our war efforts." Cerys tries to bargain for two people. She wants to bring Hayden, of course, and Elroy, but Kingfisher sticks to his guns. He says no, just one, so she ends up picking Hayden. She has to fulfill this promise in order for him to allow her to return to her own human realm. So in exchange, Cerys has to create many relics, enough for his soldiers, because what they need these relics for is for him to provide to his soldiers so they can pass to different realms via the Quicksilver. So that's the reason he needs the relics. Kingfisher is selective with his words, so he doesn't give her a hard number as far as how many relics he needs. He just says enough. And Ceres unfortunately doesn't think of it at the time, so she was kind of fooled in a way, but now she's bound by blood to deliver on creating all of these relics. So Kingfisher ends up traveling through the Quicksilver, going back to Ceres's world, and when he comes back, he brings not Hayden, not Elroy, he ends up bringing Carrion. Oops. So Fisher made a mistake. Carrion did fool him. He said, oh yeah, I'm Hayden. He's not Hayden. We talked about the heightened sense of smell that the Fae have. So Fisher ends up smelling the scent of Ceres on Carrion, and it's the scent of sex, not like familial blood. So yeah, that happened. But Kingfisher comes back very, very ill. This journey was incredibly taxing on him. And guess what? Carrion is like passed out for a really, really long time. They have to cart him around. Somewhere along the line, he loses a boot, which is pretty comical. Now, even though the blood oath specified that he would be bringing back Hayden, the blood oath still stands because of the verbiage. Kingfisher was clever as well with his words. He said he would try to bring back Hayden, not I will bring back Hayden. I will try. So again, the blood oath stands. Somewhere along the line, they are traveling with Carrion, strapped to the back of a horse, bopping along, totally unconscious. Rem is with them. Obviously, there's Kingfisher, there's Ceres. They stop at a tavern where the reaction of the tavern folk is very positive. They are overwhelmingly excited to see Kingfisher and Rem there. And they exchange stories about the glory and what great leaders they are, what great rulers. And Ceres is kind of taken aback by this. She's like, really? This asshole? I don't think he's that great. He's been kind of a jerk to me, but okay, I guess he achieved all these things and did good to his people, I guess. We also have this shadowy vortex type situation. It's called a shadow wall, if I'm not mistaken. Kingfisher can summon them and it will transport them from place to place. So Kingfisher conjures one of these shadow walls and it transports them back to his home. Oh, Shadow Gate! Shadow Gate, not Shadow Wall. Ceres travels through the Shadow Gate for the first time. It makes her very ill. She vomits a lot. But after the first time she travels, the traveling by Shadow Gate is much, much easier every time. Once they make it back to Fisher's home, they encounter a fire sprite who is very excited about Kingfisher's return. He breaks down into tears of joy and says, oh, I've hoped for your return. I've prayed for your return. And yay, bye, Joel. Here you are. This is wonderful. Again, very confusing to Ceres, who is like, yeah, all I see is an asshole. So why do these people, these creatures love him so much? Very confusing. Ren ends up convincing Ceres to have one-on-one dinners with Fisher. Ren knows Fisher way more intimately. He's known him for many, many years, and he says that Fisher isn't quite right. He's not quite himself. So the version of Fisher that Ceres knows is not his true version. So Ceres goes to one-on-one dinners with Kingfisher, and it's awkward because Ceres breaks all the social norms. She sits down right next to him, which she's not supposed to. That's a spot that's usually reserved for the lady of the house, the wife, whatever. She ends up pouring her own wine, and the smoke sprites are just aghast at what she's doing, and they think, oh my gosh, this is not correct. This is not polite. Ceres doesn't really give a crap. She's like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Now, during this dinner, they are actually attacked by a bunch of feeders. These are like vampire zombie type monsters. Ceres ends up getting injured before Fisher is able to annihilate all of them using the power of his shadows. Ceres is now taken to a healer and pretty much told to be on bed rest for several days while she recovers, which she does not want to do. She's got work to do. But yeah, the blood oath makes her stay in Kingfisher's room to recover. So now she's forced to take a break from creating or trying to create relics. Her job in creating relics is not going very well. She has no idea what she's doing. She's just trying to play it by ear. She's experimenting and none of this is going well. So anyways, she ends up taking a break from all that anyways in order to heal from this zombie vampire attack. After the recovery period, Fisher ends up taking Ceres to the war camp, which is not exactly what Ceres was expecting. But there they encounter a character named Danya. Everyone other than Danya seems to hold Kingfisher in very high regard. They are very respectful. They appear to love him. Danya is very butthurt because Kingfisher disappeared for over 100 years without a word, and we are made to believe that Kingfisher physically cannot speak about what has happened to him over the past 100+ years. But Danya is very crushed that he would abandon them all, and she throws her royal fit. We really don't like Danya. She's quite a piece of work. Yeah, she's not kind. She's extremely hurt by his absence and his lack of communication as to why he was gone for so long, that she actually tries to attack him, probably not to kill him, but at least to injure him. Ceres, in a moment of panic, ends up doing some something that an alchemist can do, and splinters Danya's sword into a billion pieces, and they get embedded into the wall. This does not make Danya very happy, but oh well. Don't attack Kingfisher, lady. Now, on their side of the war camp, we have the land that is split by a river called the Darn. Now, their war camp is on one side. On the other side is the vampires. That's right, there are vampires in the story. The river is frozen over, which allows the vampires to cross. The soldiers have to break the ice in order to prevent the vampires from crossing over and attacking them on their side of the camp. When the vampires start appearing on the other side of the Darn, Cerys and Carrion go out to help break the ice so that way the vampires cannot cross. They're successful this first time. However, we do meet a new character. His name is Malcolm. He is the king of the vampires. And this advance of theirs was not necessarily serious. It sounds weird to say that, but it was Malcolm's way of just reminding them, hey, we're here. We haven't forgotten. We still have beef. We're still going to come after you. And this is just a little reminder that we're still here and we're waiting. Now we encounter our very first very spicy sex scene. Cerys and Fisher, they return to the tent, and yeah, we're not going to talk about the explicit nature of what happens next. You can fill in the gaps with your imagination. Have fun. But during this sexual encounter, tattoos are pretty much moving on Kingfisher's body, and some of them are being transferred onto Cerys's body. Pretty cool, right? So she ends up with a bird on her collarbone. Now, Kingfisher starts acting very weird after their first time having sex together. He is no longer an asshole to her, but he has definitely given her the cold shoulder. He is avoiding her. He won't talk about it with her. He actually just won't talk to her, period. And it's very, very weird. Now, this is the part of the story after Kingfisher has had a few days to just kind of do his thing. Eventually, Kingfisher comes around and he takes Cerys to a place called Ballard, where they are currently having a celebration. It's one of their feast days where they are celebrating the longest night of the year. Everything is fine and dandy. They meet this character named Wendy, who really, really likes Fisher. She's very playful with him, but yeah. Wendy receives Kingfisher with warmth. She is giving them copious amounts of food and drink, and they enjoy their time until Cerys has an episode where she is hearing chanting, and she actually, without knowing it, she's actually saying out loud, Anarath Mor, Anarath Mor. She's hearing it and she's saying it out loud. Kingfisher ends up taking her to his old home, and everything is covered up with white sheets. It looks to have not been occupied for a very long time. There's a pretty thick, healthy layer of dust coating all of the furniture and everything, but that's his home. There's a statue of his mother outside the window as well. Kingfisher and Cerys end up going to their separate rooms for the night. Almost, because in the middle of the night, Cerys hears Kingfisher screaming. Cerys believes that he's having a bad dream. That's not necessarily it. Kingfisher is struggling. He is suffering because of the Quicksilver that is in his eye, and he's really battling with it. He is screaming, he's straining, he's sweating, he's obviously suffering significantly. So Cerys comes in the room and says, how can I help? How can I help? Kingfisher originally tells her, leave me alone, it will pass, it's fine. She goes, no, I'm going to help. And he says, get me a glass of water. She says, okay, goes and gets him water, sits behind him. So she props her back up against the headboard, allows him to lean into her. And for 4 hours, she stays with him as he struggles to keep his sanity, even though the Quicksilver is quickly eating him away. Kingfisher wants a distraction. So he asks Cerys, tell me something. And she goes, what do you want me to tell you? And he says, anything. And she goes, well, I don't have many happy memories to share, which is super sad. And he goes, I don't want to hear something happy. I want to hear something real. And so she shares the story about how her parents die, which is so tragic and it's so heartbreaking. Oh, my heart hurt for this girl. And then they fall asleep all curled up and cuddled together. But then they wake up and then they have their second sexual encounter. Again, very, very, very spicy. Fill in the gaps with your imagination. And you've also seen this trope before, but Cerys asks Fisher to bite her, which is kind of taboo. During intercourse, if a fae bites their partner, it sends both of them into a state of euphoria, and it's difficult to talk about, very kinky, but they end up doing that. And then more tattoos are appearing all over Cerys's body, like big time, everywhere, all over her hands, and she discovers later on that they're runes, and there's a lot of significance to them, and we'll get to that. Cerys kind of panics after seeing all of these new tattoos, and Kingfisher is able to temporarily hide them. He says, you have 1 month to decide if you want to keep them or remove them entirely. And she goes, okay. He doesn't provide much more information than that, and she just has to deal with it, not knowing for the time being. But the little bird on her collarbone remains. All the rest of them are temporarily hidden. Not removed, but hidden. Oh, also we discovered that they can kind of talk to each other. They can't read each other's minds, but they can speak to each other directly through their minds. So they don't actually have to say physical words, but they can think a thought at each other and they can hear each other. You've seen that trope before too. I'm sure it's kind of a common one. At this point in the story, Ceres attempts to talk to the Quicksilver and convince it to leave Kingfisher. That is not successful. It's a great idea, but the Quicksilver is very much embedded into him. It's a part of him, so it cannot be removed without killing him. So back at the forge, Ceres is extremely frustrated because she has not successfully been able to make a single relic, and this is incredibly frustrating to her. So she is throwing beakers at a rock wall when Carrion comes up and he goes, "Hey, what are we doing? Oh, looks like fun. May I join you?" So they're throwing beakers at a wall and she's telling him how pissed off she is because she can't create a relic. And he goes, "Have you thought about asking the Quicksilver?" And she immediately discards that idea and goes, "That's ridiculous. No." But then she thinks about it and she's like, why didn't I think about that? Quicksilver is sentient. It can talk. We can understand each other. Why haven't I just asked it to cooperate? So she feels embarrassed and she immediately goes to try it. And guess what? Carrion, you are more clever than you let on. So at this point in the story, they go back to where she accidentally on purpose splintered Dania's sword. And guess what? Ceres is able to talk to the Quicksilver and convince it to be reforged into something new. But the Quicksilver wants something in exchange. It wants a song to keep. And she goes, okay, done. Deal. Now she has control over all these little splinters. They're coming out of the walls and she's able to forge a brand new, beautiful sword. And Lorith, we got to talk about Lorith. Shoot. Okay. Lorith. Okay. He's a warrior. Guess who saved his ass when he was a boy? It was Kingfisher. Lorith was about to die and Kingfisher pretty much gave a piece of his soul in order to allow Lorith to live. Now here's the problem. If Lorith dies, Kingfisher gets that piece of his soul back. But if Kingfisher dies, he's kind of stuck in like this purgatory place, for lack of a better term, while Lorith continues to live his life. And until Lorith also perishes, Kingfisher cannot know rest or peace. So it's a huge risk. And Kingfisher does this for this boy he doesn't even know. So that's just going to show his character and that he's not an evil bastard like Ceres assumes. So anyways, Lorith is kind of in and out of the story, but he pops over and sees this beautiful sword that Ceres has created. And he goes to touch it. And just barely by touching the sword, it nicks him and it draws blood. And the Quicksilver agrees to allow magic to flow through the sword and to be used by the wielder, if they determine that the wielder is worthy. And how do they determine that? The first person to spill blood on the sword. So even though this is supposed to be Dania's sword, Lorith was the first one to accidentally get blood on the sword. Now the sword, or the Quicksilver, determines Lorith to be worthy. So they say, we accept this bond, essentially, with Lorith, which is not going to make Dania happy, but oh well. Ceres has to uphold her end of the deal. She has to provide a song for the Quicksilver to keep. Lorith ends up singing this beautiful song way back when he used to be a performer, and he sings this beautiful song about Kingfisher, and the Quicksilver loves it. So they accept the song, and they allow magic to be used within the sword by the wielder. Pretty awesome. And what we come to see is a phenomenon known as Angel's Breath. And it's this awesome magical ability that Lorith alone can use to fight evil or whatever. Now here is where the vampires come to attack again. So they go out, they try to break the ice to prevent the vampires from crossing. Well, guess what? These vampires are getting either stronger or better because once they fell into the broken ice and into the quickly rushing river, they were usually swept away where they would just die. Well, somehow they're making it across the river and into the camp. So Lorith comes, he uses his sword for the first time, and it's awesome. The magical abilities are just awesome. And here's where Ceres shows her badassery too. She's scrappy. She ends up assisting significantly, ends up killing a lot of the vampires. You have to behead them. Yeah, like the normal situation goes, you have to behead the vampire in order to kill it, but she kills and takes down several, and she ends up getting a ton of respect for it. After the whole battle is over, they pay tribute to her and pretty much accept her as part of the Wolf clan. But here's the problem. Now, after this whole ordeal, we see that Everlane has been taken by Malcolm, the Vampire King. She's standing on the other side of the Darn. The second in command to the King of the Vampires is this character named Taladeus? I want to say it's Taladeus. He has a knife to Lane's throat, and pretty much they are using her to bait Fisher as well as Ceres. So Malcolm ends up biting Lane. Now she has not very long. I want to say it's like 24 hours that she has before the venom just kills her, but now she is like tied to Malcolm, and she's essentially his slave. She is enslaved to Malcolm, and she is on a ticking time clock. She is either going to die or worse. Now, the crew has to go back and figure out how the heck do we save Lane. Let's figure this out because we don't have much time. Now, this is the part where Telena, the healer, comes and talks to Cerys about the tattoos. It's kind of information that Cerys wasn't necessarily digging for, but she sees that Telena has these runes and these markings on her hands. And guess what? It's the result of a mating bond. So, yep, you've seen that trope before too. Look at ACOTAR. So she has a bond that she has not accepted or rejected with Fisher, but hers are also blessed by the gods because she has so many runes and tattoos, and that was supposed to be something of the past that hasn't been seen for centuries. But guess what? Her and Fisher share that together. They have a very powerful mating bond that was blessed by the gods. Cerys is pissed. There are bigger things to deal with right now. They have to go save Lane, but first she has to confront Kingfisher and be like, hey, what the hell? Why did you withhold this information from me? This is huge. Kingfisher's kind of given up. He just kind of assumes that she's going to reject the bond, and even if she doesn't, he knows that the Quicksilver is quickly eating away at his sanity. He doesn't think he has much time left anyways. So they kind of put their differences aside in order to come up with a plan to save Lane. They have a plan where Cerys, Kingfisher, Rem, Lorith, and Carrion are all going to go try to save Everlane. The next day, they plan to save Lane, but this is going to be the third and final really spicy sex scene. Yeah, again, fill in the gaps with your imagination. It's a lot. And then they end up falling asleep, curled up together, but the morning that they are scheduled to go save Lane, Kingfisher is gone. He's already gone by himself to go save Lane. He leaves Cerys a note saying exactly what he's done. He said, I'm going to open a shadow gate. I'm going to throw Everlane through, and that's it. Make sure that we have the witch to help her heal. Make sure Telena is there, and she's going to be just fine. Cerys is devastated. She knows that Kingfisher alone is probably not going to be able to come back, and she wanted to be there to help. So she goes and tells the rest of the crew what he did. They're all just royally pissed. So Cerys joins up with Rem, Carrion, Lorith, and they decide, even though Kingfisher went ahead, they're still going to make an attempt to go help him save Lane. And if he sends Lane back without him, they're going to go retrieve his ass. So, yep, in the time that they're waiting for him to open up a shadow gate and shove Lane through, Cerys ends up forging a new sword for Carrion. And what does the Quicksilver want in exchange for its cooperation? It wants jokes. What a perfect piece of Quicksilver to be suited for Carrion, because Carrion is hilarious. He's a jokester. And so Carrion provides many crude, ill-advised jokes that the Quicksilver eats up. They accept the bond immediately. And what does Carrion name his sword? Simon. Yeah, nice, right? All right, we're getting there. This is the final stretch. So Fisher ends up opening the shadow gate. He throws Lane through. She comes crashing through to the other side. The shadow gate is really high up above. Normally you can just kind of walk through it, but for some reason it opened up way above. And so Cerys quickly goes to retrieve the sword Solus to take with her on this adventure to help Kingfisher, because the gate is going to stay open for a short while after somebody comes through it. So she grabs Solus. Rem ends up pushing up Carrion. Carrion goes first. He also throws Cerys up into the shadow gate. And then finally, we get Lorith, who also made it through the shadow gate, but it closed before Rem could come through. So it's just the three of them. We have Cerys, we have Lorith, and we have Carrion. So we have 2 humans and a fae. So that's going to be the rescue party. Sorry, Rem, you didn't make it this round. So he has to stay on the other side of the shadow gate. Now, they end up falling like 80 feet into a pool of water, and they crash hard. Cerys hits so hard that she is sure that she has broken several ribs. Luckily for her and Carrion, who have been battered to hell, Lorith has what's called Widow's Bane, which is a very strong painkiller. Now, you just have to chew it and stick it under your tongue. You can't swallow it because it's deadly. It's like poison. It doesn't last for forever, but at least long enough to dull the pain. And thank goodness, because their journey is just beginning. Now, here's where the twists start coming at us, one right after the other, right after the other, right after the other. So now they're on the other side of this vampire kingdom, which is just a land of dead and ash, magicless realm. It's gross, but they have these large obsidian walls that they have to scale. Once they scale up the top of the obsidian wall, they see that there is a huge amphitheater with Kingfisher in the center of it. We should be surprised to see that the Triumvirate, I hope I say that right, the Triumvirate, it consists of 3 people. So we have King Belicon, we have Queen Madra, we also have Malcolm. These 3 are in league with each other. We are led to believe that these 3 parties are at war with each other. They're not. They're in league with each other. And ooh, didn't see that coming. Cerys is also surprised to see Heron, the captain of the guard of Queen Madra. He's there. She thought he got killed off, though he does not look well. He's definitely not, but he was granted eternal life by the queen, although he really should pass because he's looking gnarly. King Bellicon ends up releasing Fisher of this blood oath that prevented him from talking about what happened over those 111 years when he just disappeared. Well, he was stuck in this hellhole, this kingdom of the vampires, if you will. And so Kingfisher gets to finally express what happened. Well, he burned this entire city. He had to do it because they were all turning vampires. So now all of these souls are kind of trapped here. They're pretty much dead, but they're like still here, which Malcolm plans to use all of these dead vampire people things as part of his army. And anyways, Kingfisher set it all ablaze, so he's haunted by that for sure. All these people cannot pass into the beyond. They cannot achieve eternal rest. They're just stuck. There was nobody that could have been saved, and so Kingfisher took the only solution that was available to him at the time, and that made sense. This is where we learn that Kingfisher was tricked by these three. So they struck a deal in which they flip a coin, and they had certain outcomes planned out for when the coin hits the ground. Well, when the coin is flipped, Malcolm snatches the coin from Bellicon, and so it never hits the ground. So they again fooled Kingfisher and left him here in this awful maze, this horrible maze, where he has to find the one coin which was used to strike this awful deal. That's where he's been for the last 111 years. And yeah, not a fun place. So we see more of this maze here in the very near future. Right before they take refuge in this awful maze type situation, Fisher ends up stabbing King Bellicon with his sword with Solus, but remember, this is a magicless land, so it doesn't kill Bellicon because the sword is not infused with magic. So it's inconvenient for King Bellicon, but it does not kill him. Now they all retreat into the labyrinth, which pretty soon they encounter a spider demon-like thing. Just disgusting. They are able to defeat it, but it is just terrifying, and they're able to move on from the spidery demon. They end up in this pit full of probably millions of coins where they are forced to figure out which is the coin that was used to strike the bargain. Now, Ceres is listening very intently because she should, if it's a real coin, she should be able to hear the Quicksilver, but she hears it outside of this cavern full of coins, and Kingfisher tells her, you need to find it. Malcolm appears in this room full of coins, and he ends up biting Carrion. We think Carrion is done for, but he's not. Malcolm ends up withdrawing and saying, I've been poisoned by your blood. What is this? Well, this is the part where we find out that Carrion is actually Fae. He's been stuck in the third ward for however many years. He was just kind of stuck there, and he just lived his life as a human. There was a glamour that was put over him. You've heard that term before. It's very common. To prevent other people from knowing that he was Fae. Ceres goes about her journey individually because she has to go find this stupid coin. Well, she finds it in the maw of the spider demon, so she has to reach in through all of his rows of teeth and pluck it out. Well, Malcolm is right on her, and he snatches it from her. Malcolm is in pretty rough condition from the poisoning from Carrion, but he's still operable. He's still able to get to her and to relieve her of the coin. And he's still stronger than her, unfortunately. Malcolm ends up stabbing Ceres in the gut. Again, really inconvenient. The Widow's Bane is starting to wear off, so she is starting to feel pretty crappy. Ceres ends up stabbing Malcolm in the throat, which is not going to kill him because she needs to behead him, and with preferably a magical sword. It was more so of an inconvenience to him, but she used that as her way to get close to him in order to snatch the pouch that he had put the coin in. By doing this, she's able to complete the bargain that was started 111 years ago. She flips the coin not high because she needs to make sure it hits the ground, which it does. In that moment, a huge breeze sweeps through the lands, and all of the people that were stuck there that were incinerated by Kingfisher end up turning into ash, floating away, finally at peace. All the structures around them are starting to crumble. The amphitheater is starting to crumble because guess what? The deal is complete. Finally. Now, because she did this, magic is starting to be restored to these lands. Now, Solus, who she is carrying at her side, she's able to use this magic-embedded sword to relieve Malcolm of his head. So he's done for. He's dead. But unfortunately, Queen Madra and King Bellicon, they get away. They flee. They realize that they have lost, and they get away. They still live, unfortunately. So, Ceres, we're not looking so good. She is dying. She has many broken ribs. She's been stabbed in the gut. And now Kingfisher is looking for her. He is in a mad panic. She is absolutely 100% dying. Except you can probably guess what's going to happen here. We find out that Taladeus is actually in league with Kingfisher. Remember, Taladeus is that guy. He's like second to Malcolm. Although Malcolm kind of enslaved him, and so he was there kind of against his will. He offers to help Ceres, but she doesn't have the presence of mind or the health to really make a decision. He can turn her and extend her life. And Kingfisher makes the decision for her. He says she consents as she is like on her last breath. Taladeus bites her. The very painful transition begins. Somewhere during this critical condition, we do find out that Cerys accepts the bond with Kingfisher, even though she knows that she's dying, but she does not reject the bond, she accepts it. Her whole mission for a lot of this book was to return to her homeland, but she ends up developing these feelings for Fisher. No, she falls in love with Fisher, let's just be honest. So she accepts the bond and she realizes, I would rather stay here with Kingfisher than go home. Yes, I want to care for my brother, I want to see him again, but I want to be here. I want to assist in the war efforts. I want to make these relics and I want to be with Kingfisher. Now, Cerys owes the Quicksilver a small favor. Now, we come to realize that all the Quicksilver wants is an audience. And so Cerys, like, while she's dying pretty much and being transitioned to a vampire, she is transported to see the god of chaos, who is the father of the two moons from her homeland. This is a very interesting interaction that she has with this god, because he comes to tell her that he has meddled with their fate. He has moved things around to prevent Kingfisher from ever meeting Cerys. He tried to divert their paths so wildly that they never even meet each other. In every possible outcome, Kingfisher always finds Cerys. Cerys also always finds Kingfisher. It's just meant to be. The fates would not allow the god of chaos to reroute their destinies. They were always meant to meet each other. They were always meant to end up together. We also learn that Fisher's mother was a seer. She saw Cerys before she passed, and she drew sketches of her and provided it to Kingfisher and said, here you go. This is who you're going to meet. This is your mate. This is the one for you. She drew Cerys with pointy ears. And Kingfisher originally says sometimes she got little details wrong. Well, she's not wrong, because guess what? When Cerys heals from this transition, she is half fae and half vampire. Now she's got the pointy ears. So lo and behold, his mom was right. When we get back, we see that Everlane has been healed. The witch and Tilana, I think that's how you say her name, were actually successful. And so, yay, Everlane's gonna live. She's fine. We also see that Carrion is actually fae, which I did not see that coming. That was a surprise to me. Kingfisher is also seeing improvement with the Quicksilver in his eye, because he's seeking treatment from Tilena as well as the witch, and they're able to temper the symptoms of the Quicksilver, so that's good. And then the final twist, the final piece of this story that's going to leave us hanging on a cliffhanger is, because Cerys was the one to slay the king of the vampires, she is now scheduled to become the queen of Sansroth. Queen of the Vampires. What a wild ending, you guys. What a wild ending. For me, this was a 5-star book. I hope you love this book as well. If this summary was helpful to you, I hope you leave me a comment. I hope you're as excited as I am for November of this year, so we can find out what happens to Cerys and Kingfisher next. I personally am dying to know. Absolutely love this book. I thought this was just a wonderful, wonderful read. I always recommend it, as long as readers are okay with a pretty heavy amount of spice. I'm going to end it there. If you stuck with me thus far, thank you so much. Again, I hope the summary was helpful. If you want all the finer details that this book has to offer, go buy yourself a copy on Amazon. Again, the link is in the description. I also have another video, spoiler-free, of a review of this video. I'll also drop that link below in the description. I hope that you're reading something great. Let me know in the comments if it's not Quicksilver. If you have any book recommendations, I'm always all ears. And that's all I have for you today, and I will catch you on the flip side.